My name is Evelyn. I'm 72, a widow, and the kind of mother who never wanted to be a burden. I raised my son to be independent, to stand tall, to build a life he could be proud of. And for a long time, I believed I had done that. The cafe was quiet that morning, filled with soft jazz and the scent of baked apples. I had chosen the place because it was Ryan's favorite something familiar and comfortable. I thought we were just having our usual Sunday brunch, catching up on the kids chatting about the weather. Lindsay looked up from her latte with a perfect practiced smile and said it like she was commenting on the menu. "We've decided not to invite you for Thanksgiving this year." My fork paused midair, but I didn't drop it. I nodded because it was all I could do. Ryan didn't say a word at first. He just stared down at his eggs, cutting them into tiny, distracted pieces. Eventually, he mumbled something about wanting it to be more intimate this year, how Lindsay's parents would be in town, and how the house would be full. He never looked me in the eye. I wrapped my hand around my water glass. It was cold. I remember focusing on that, the coolness against my skin, like it could keep my face from flushing or my voice from cracking. I smiled polite and even and said I understood, but I didn't. What I felt was an ache I hadn't known in years, not since Tom passed away. This wasn't grief. It was rejection. Quiet, final, and sharp in a way I wasn't prepared for. They talked about their holiday plans, the caterer, and the new pumpkin centerpiece Lindsay found on Pinterest. I asked about Sophie's school play and Lucas's soccer team, and they responded in clipped, distracted answers. The rest of brunch passed like that, me pretending to be fine, them pretending I wasn't disappearing from their lives, one polite gesture at a time. When we walked out to the parking lot, Ryan gave me a quick hug and promised they'd do something with me in December. Maybe. Lindsay was already checking her phone. I stood there for a long time after they drove off, watching their SUV turn the corner and disappear. That's when it hit me. Not the fact that I wasn't invited to Thanksgiving, but they didn't even think it would matter. Like I was an afterthought. Like I wouldn't notice I'd been quietly erased. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alone. Not because I didn't have family, but because mine no longer saw me as part of theirs. After Tom died, I had more silence than I knew what to do with. The house was too big, too quiet, and filled with echoes of a life I no longer had. I spent the first few weeks moving from room to room, unsure of what to do with myself, unsure of how to exist without him. Ryan and Lindsay were kind at first. They came by often, brought the kids and helped me sort through closets and paperwork. Ryan sat at the kitchen table one day, looked me in the eye and said his business was finally starting to turn a corner. I didn't ask questions. I just listened. What he didn't know was that I had already seen the numbers. I had access to everything after all, from the days when Tom handled our taxes and helped Ryan get his business off the ground. His firm wasn't turning a corner, it was barely standing. So I stepped in, quietly. At first it was small, a transfer here, a payment there. Then it became a regular thing, the mortgage every month like clockwork. Tuition payments to Westgate Academy always on time. A down payment on the new SUV Lindsay said they needed, though they were already drowning in debt. I used Tom's life insurance to cover it all, and when that ran out faster than I'd expected, I started pulling from my retirement savings. I told myself it was temporary. Just until Ryan got back on his feet. Just until the business stabilized. But years went by, 5 of them, and I never said a word. I let them believe it was all their doing, that the business had finally blossomed, that they were thriving because of their hard work. I thought I was protecting their pride. I thought I was being a good mother. But now I wonder if I wasn't just making it easier for them to forget me. Every month I watched the money move. Thousands of dollars gone in seconds. No thanks. No questions, just expectations. I didn't want credit. I didn't want applause. I just wanted to feel like I still mattered, that even if I wasn't needed as a wife anymore, maybe I could still matter as a mother. Instead, I became invisible. They built a beautiful life, and I was the scaffolding they never saw, holding it all up from the shadows. And the more I gave, the easier it became for them to stop seeing me at all. It didn't happen all at once. That's the hardest part to explain. There wasn't a moment where someone slammed a door or said I didn't belong. It was quieter than that. 1,000 small things that didn't feel like much until they added up to everything. One Thanksgiving, I brought my old pumpkin pie recipe, the one Tom used to request every year. Lindsay smiled, thin and polite, and said the caterer was already handling desserts. She never even opened the foil. That pie sat on the counter untouched while everyone raved about the rosemary shortbread from some place in Napa. At Christmas, I was seated at the far end of the table next to Lindsay's great uncle, who couldn't hear a word I said. The kids were all down at the other end, laughing with their cousins, their faces lit by the glow of new electronics I had unknowingly helped pay for. No one even asked if I wanted a photo with them before dessert. Lindsay once looked me up and down before a brunch and said, half joking, that I really ought to buy something that didn't look like it came from the bargain bin. Another time, I made my meatloaf for Sunday dinner, and she asked if I'd ever considered going gluten-free. Said the kids were used to eating cleaner now. And when I tried to chime in on something, school decisions, vacation plans, even which playground had better shade, my suggestions were always met with a quiet pause, then a smooth redirection. Lindsay had already done the research. Ryan had already made the call. They had it handled. After a while, I stopped offering, stopped bringing dishes, stopped asking questions. I told myself it was just generational. Maybe I was out of touch, but deep down, I knew the truth. I was becoming a formality. A smile at the door, a name on a card, a seat to be filled when they needed extra hands or babysitting favors, but never when it was just for joy. Just for love. No one was cruel. That's what made it harder. They weren't monsters, just distracted, just busy, just slowly drifting away from the woman who had held them all together without asking for anything in return. And in the quiet moments after the laughter died down and the dishwasher hummed in the background, I would sit with my lukewarm coffee and wonder when I had become a ghost in my own family. The message came in on a Wednesday afternoon while I was folding laundry. Lindsay's name lit up on my phone like any other day. I opened it without thinking. Just a short text, cheerful and efficient. Can you handle the Thanksgiving catering again this year? Same place, same order. Thanks so much. I stood there, one of Tom's old t-shirts still in my hands, staring at the screen. She didn't mention the brunch, didn't reference the fact that I wouldn't be there, just assumed I'd pay for a meal I wasn't welcome to eat. Something in me went still, not sad, not angry, just still. The kind of silence that comes right before a thunderstorm, where the air shifts and everything waits. For years, I told myself I was helping, supporting, keeping them afloat until things got better, but this was different. This was entitlement, pure and simple. Not even the decency of a please, just expectation. I didn't reply. I didn't even move. I just stood in my kitchen, surrounded by soft clothes and a silence that had finally started to speak, and for the first time I listened. It wasn't the message that broke me, it was what it meant. That I wasn't even worth the cost of a catered meal. That they could exclude me from the table and still count on my check to cover it. I set my phone down gently like it was something fragile. But inside, something solid had finally formed. A quiet, steady line I wasn't willing to cross anymore. The next morning, I made a cup of tea, sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. My hands hovered for a moment, not shaking, just still. Then I logged into my bank. The mortgage transfer was set to go out in 3 days. I clicked cancel. A small box popped up asking if I was sure. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I was sure. For the first time in years, I was sure. Next was the tuition portal. I logged into Westgate's system, found the automatic payment authorization, and removed my card. No email, no warning, just done. Then the caterer. I typed out a short, polite note to cancel the order. No explanation, just a cancellation. I didn't owe them a reason. Each click felt like lifting a stone from my chest. With every step, the weight started to shift. I hadn't realized how much I had been carrying, how much I had given up without ever saying it out loud. When it was all finished, I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. The house was quiet, not lonely, just quiet in a way that felt like mine again. I looked out the window at the changing leaves. A new season was coming. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel afraid of it. I felt free. It took less than 48 hours for the calls to start. Not to me, to the mortgage company, to the school, to the caterer. The moment the payments didn't come through, the panic set in, and then they remembered who had always come through. My phone lit up that afternoon like it had been waiting to explode. Ryan's voice filled my voicemail first, all confusion. Mom, the mortgage didn't go through. Something must be wrong with the bank. Call me. Then Lindsay's. The caterer says we canceled. This must be a mistake. Can you fix it? We're on a deadline. I didn't respond. I sat on the porch with my tea and watched the wind move through the trees. They weren't worried about me, just their plans, their comfort, their image. By day 3, the tone had shifted. Ryan's next message was tight with frustration. I don't know what this is, but it's not fair to the kids. We were counting on you. Lindsay followed sharper. If you had a problem, you should have said something. But this is childish and passive-aggressive. You can't just pull out like this without warning. I still didn't answer. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally cared enough about myself not to let their fear become my responsibility. I had done enough hiding, enough absorbing blame that was never mine. On day 5, I received an email, a legal one, from a firm that Lindsay's cousin apparently worked for. It claimed I had created financial dependence and implied I might be liable for damages if I didn't resume support. I read it once, then calmly forwarded it to Mark, my financial advisor, with a short note. Please handle. Mark called me 10 minutes later, laughing. Evelyn, you have no legal obligation to fund their lifestyle. This is intimidation, nothing more. I thanked him and hung up. Then I turned off my phone. They hadn't called to ask if I was okay. Not once. Not even to pretend. Their concern wasn't for me. It was for the house, the bills, the party. And for the first time in years, I didn't flinch. I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I didn't bend. I had been the net under their high wire for far too long. Now they would have to learn to walk without it. I drove to the coast early on a Saturday morning, just me and the sound of the radio humming low. It had been years since I'd taken a trip by myself, and even longer since I'd done something without checking if it was convenient for someone else. The roads were quiet, the sky open, and the air smelled like something was about to change. The town was called Seabrook, a small community tucked just inland from the ocean. Palm trees lined the sidewalks. Wind carried the scent of salt and hibiscus through the air. It was the kind of place that didn't try too hard, just existed quietly, peacefully. Jillian from the real estate office met me at the community gate. She smiled like she had known me forever, and something about her calm energy made me feel like I could breathe. She walked me down a winding path past pastel-colored cottages with wraparound porches and flower boxes in every window. When we stopped in front of the yellow one, something inside me settled. It was simple. 1 story, 2 bedrooms, a screened porch with a wicker swing, and a path leading down to the beach. I didn't need to go inside to know it felt right. But I did. And it only confirmed what my heart already knew. The light filtered in through tall windows. The living room was cozy and open. The master bedroom looked out toward the dunes and the shimmer of blue beyond them. We didn't talk much as we walked from room to room. I think Jillian knew better than to interrupt a woman falling in love with freedom. I wasn't thinking about resale value or what Ryan and Lindsay would say. I was thinking about morning coffee with ocean air and evenings without voicemails. This place wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It was enough. And after so many years of giving away my enoughness to other people, I was finally ready to claim it for myself. We sat on the porch as the afternoon light shifted across the sand. Jillian asked if I wanted to think it over. I told her I already had. My whole life I had been thinking it over. And now I was ready to begin. The call came late in the evening, just as I was washing up the last of the dishes. I almost didn't answer, assuming it was another voicemail I didn't need to hear. But then I saw the name on the screen. Sophie. Her voice was small and unsure the way kids sound when they're trying to be brave. "Grandma, are you mad at us?" I sat down right there at the kitchen table, the dish towel still in my hands. "No, sweetheart, never at you." She told me that Mom and Dad had been arguing a lot, that there was talk about selling the house, about leaving her school. She said it like she was reciting something she didn't fully understand but knew was important. And then she asked again, did I stop loving them? I felt something in my chest crack wide open. I told her that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes even when they think they're doing the right thing. That I had helped her parents a lot, but now I needed to make sure I was okay too, and that didn't mean I stopped caring. She was quiet for a moment, and then she asked if she could still visit me, even if everything else changed. I smiled, even as tears filled my eyes. "Of course you can, baby. You and Lucas always." We talked about the ocean and how my new porch had a swing just big enough for 2. She asked if I'd still make the holiday cookies with the sugar snowflakes on top. I promised I would. She said they were better than anything the caterers made. After we hung up, I sat there in the quiet, staring out the window at the dark sky. That one call had reached a part of me none of the others had touched. It reminded me why I had done all those things in the first place. It was never for the house or the approval. It was for the kids. Always for the kids. And maybe there was still something I could do. Not to fix everything, but to make sure the 2 people who had never forgotten me still had something steady beneath their feet. Not money from their parents, but something just for them. Something that told them they were never the problem, and never was the reason I walked away. Thanksgiving morning came with clear skies and the sound of waves brushing the sand just beyond my porch. I pulled the pie from the oven, the same recipe Tom always loved, the crust a little uneven, but golden and warm. There was no formal table, no servers, no centerpiece carved from gourds. Just my old dishes, a small turkey, and the smell of cinnamon filling the house. Sophie and Lucas arrived just before noon, their faces bright and windswept from the short walk up the beach with Ryan. He stayed only long enough to help carry the food inside, then quietly left, giving me a look that said more than words. We weren't fixed. But something had shifted. There was room now, space to begin again maybe. The kids helped me set the table on the screened porch. Lucas folded the napkins into triangles, and Sophie found seashells to use as place markers. We ate with the windows open, the sea breeze dancing through the room, our laughter carrying into the late afternoon. I hadn't laughed like that in years, not from obligation, just from joy. After dinner, we sat on the porch swing, watching the sun dip into the ocean. Sophie leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered that this was her favorite Thanksgiving ever. I didn't have to ask why. I already knew. It wasn't perfect, it was real. As the sky turned from gold to deep blue, I wrapped my arm around them and let the quiet fill the space where noise used to be. No one asked for anything. No one expected anything. We were just there together and it was enough. And for the first time, I wasn't giving too much of myself away. I was simply giving love, the kind that doesn't come with a bill or a condition, the kind that stays. That night, as they fell asleep on the pull-out couch, I stood at the door and whispered, "Thank you to the ocean." Not for what I had lost, but for everything I had finally chosen to keep.